I
ahead.
mean, these Padres, I mean, while you were gone, they were stinking up the joint. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Royals and the Red Sox. What are we going to do, Hacksaw?
So the Padres have got real problems here because now we're approaching June 1st, which is the start officially of baseball in summertime. And the Padres are closer to last place than they are to first place. In fact, at one point this past week, John, on the weekend, the Padres were 1 game out of last place, 1 game ahead of the last place Colorado Rockies. And there's been all kinds of reaction in the community. I think the most stunning thing to me was during the Kansas City series last week. Padres Royals, they lost 2 of 3 after getting belted by the Boston Red Sox. There were a lot of boos, and I've not heard a lot of boos at Petco Park, maybe ever. People are really upset at how this program has evolved, the expectations, the amount of money spent, and where they are in the standings. And now they've kicked off a 9-game road trip, starting with Washington, which has never been an easy place to play. And then they go to Yankee Stadium. So it's not going to get any easier for the Padres. Should I use the word underachiever? Yeah. Should I use the word blame game? Not yet. Still, John, there's still an awful lot of baseball to be played, but this team cannot afford to be 10 or 15 games under 500 as we get into the summer season of Major League Baseball and think they can make a run. I don't have any understanding why this team can't hit because these guys have hit in the past. I did say to you all off season when we were talking hot stove league stuff that your pitching staff that was so great last year might not be the same pitching staff this year. And look what's happened in terms of consistency, in terms of injury, in terms of underachievement. Just very briefly, let's just talk that guy, AJ Preller. Bottom line, his team, his roster, his organization, and the contracts that he signed off on. If this does not work out, I don't know that we should fire the manager, Bob Melvin, but we should hold that guy accountable if this does not work out. But I put an asterisk next to it, John, because we still have a lot of baseball, 115 games or so to play. Juan Soto, some good games, some bad games, some slumps. He's only hitting in the 240s. He's not what he was supposed to be when he came from Washington. Right. Manny Machado, the fluke fracture of his hand, probably back in a week or so, but he's hitting only 231. He's not what he had been for such a long period of his baseball career, and that's a bit of a stunner. Blake Snell's an enigma. I've had enough. 1-6. I don't want to hear any more quotes. I don't want to hear any more philosophies. You're 1-6 with an ERA of almost 6, and it goes on and on and on every year. Joe Musgrove, we will cut him some slack just because of the injury and the missed spring training time. But the truth is, his ERA is 5.48, and he's given up home runs. So it's just not what we expected. And if this does not work out, we will have to raise questions at the end of the season about that guy's ability to actually put together a winner, a roster. Because outside of the 3 months we had last year and the push to the playoffs and the excitement of beating the Dodger Blues in the National Championship Series, John, outside of those 3 months, there have been no accomplishments here with his leadership in San Diego. And you can win the winter baseball trading meetings and you can win at the trading deadline. But if you're not winning consistently, and they just don't look like they're anywhere near close to being what the Dodgers have been for 9 or 10 years. All right. So I fired a lot of shots at you out in left field. Go ahead, defend the honor, critique the honor, do what you want. You're part of this show.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Preller is the top dog. Okay, well, next to Seidler, and he does bear responsibility at the top of the organizational chart. But, going into the season, we were praising Seidler for spending all this money. We were praising Preller for being this, wheeler and dealer and signing these guys. We all knew he gave up a ton for Juan Soto, but generally speaking, the Padre fan base loved it. I'm going into this. I'm thinking, how can you blame Preller that Machado, a perennial MVP player, is hitting 231? I mean, that's not Preller's fault. It's not Preller's fault that Juan Soto suddenly can't hit the ball. I mean, those are things that I think you have to look at the players themselves, because look at our history here in San Diego and the other GMs we've had. You could point fingers at them. You could point fingers at our previous ownership, but our leadership now, man, I have confidence in what they're doing. The players are just not holding up their side of the bargain.
If this turns out to be a wretched season, if this turns out to be not a playoff season, they're going to have to make some changes.
Well, yeah.
And they may have to make some changes with some big name players. Now, that being said, I'm sorry, I'm not going around looking for the panic button yet. I'm willing to give them more space, but I don't understand why these guys can't hit. Do you know in the history of baseball, John, and that goes back to the 1890s, that was a few curveballs ago. In the history of baseball, there's never been a team with a batting average of sub 200 with runners in scoring position. Never.
Yeah, it's just
never
inexplicable.
And your team is hitting 194 through the first quarter of the season with a $253 million payroll. 194 with runners in scoring position.
And we thought this was a deep lineup, right? And then, it would be 1 through 6 would be all stars. And you get down at the bottom of the order, even guys like Austin Ola, we thought we're going to get better looks because all the other players at the top of the order would hit better. It hasn't turned out that way. Padres Twitter, the fan base is going crazy. There are people that are calling for Bob Melvin's head. There are even some crazy people that want to re-sign Eric Hosmer. Can you believe that?
Well, they have to pay him anyhow.
Right.
They owe him $39 million.
Yeah.
So instead of mailing the check to Kansas City where he lives, bring him back, let him be your first baseman, and put Jake back at second base and let Kim be your superstar sub multi-position guy. You can't do any worse, and you got to pay him. So maybe you bring him back and play him. That's far-fetched. I understand that. If you want to leave now and walk out to left field, that's okay.
Okay.
So that's where we are with the Padres. An awful lot of baseball to be played, but I'm sorry. They are underachievers. If I'm wrong, I want you to tell us by jumping on our fans forum at the end.